Okay, so now for the really interesting stuff.
I don't have a presentation. It's a little mundane. I'll try to keep it brief. Mr. President and members of the board. I want to start today with an update on our activity in the bond market and the credit markets. We briefly touched on this in Finance Committee today, but starting with a report on our line of credit. We did make a draw on the line of credit, which you approved in March. This was a bank line of credit, as you recall, for up to $50 million. In September, we drew down $19 million of that, and the purpose was to reimburse TriMet and the general fund for capital expenditures that we had made earlier for WES and for bus purchases. And we made the draw at that time to increase our cash balances right before we make our big pension payment each year for the union and the management pension plans, and that's about $33 million. So we just wanted to shore up our cash reserves at that time. Yesterday, we repaid the draw on the line of credit when we closed our bond issue, which paid off the line of credit and gave us additional funds for capital investments. So now I'd like to tell you about the bond sale. On October 14th this year, TriMet sold $49.55 million of senior lien revenue bonds, payroll tax bonds, to finance capital projects and, as I said, to repay the line of credit. This was authority that you had granted us, approved by the board in July of 2005 or 6, I think it was 5, for $95 million of payroll tax bonds. And in 2007, TriMet issued $45 million of that, so this was using the remainder of the authority that you had approved earlier. And one thing that was a little different about this bond issue, the bond structure was a little bit different as a result of new provisions that were granted to municipalities and tax-exempt issuers under the Economic Stimulus Act, the federal act. So we issued about $37 million of the 45 as traditional tax-exempt bonds. So when an owner has the bond, they don't pay interest on, they don't pay federal tax on the interest on those bonds. But about $12.5 million of the bonds were these new bonds called Build America bonds, which were created under the Stimulus Act. Those bonds have taxable interest, so the rate to us is higher. We pay a higher rate to bondholders because the interest is not tax exempt. But the all-in cost to us is lower because the federal government makes a subsidy payment to us equal to 35% of the interest amount. So when interest is due, we send the taxable interest rate out to the bondholders, and then on that same day, the Fed send us the 35% subsidy payment. And this was a program that was introduced at the time the stimulus bill was passed. It has a limited lifespan and a number of large municipal issuers around the country. Many of us have been taking advantage of this because it results in a lower all-in cost of the borrowing for us. And when this subsidy was taken into account, the overall cost for our borrowing was 3.9, a little bit under 3.9%. And these bonds mature from starting next year all the way out to 2033. So it's a very attractive financing cost to finance our long-term assets. It was also fortunate for us, a very favorable time to be selling bonds. We don't guess about the market and try to think of when rates are lower. We borrow money when we need the funds. But we were very close to the 40-year low rates for tax-exempt bonds when we sold. So we feel very fortunate about that. And in preparation for the sale, we did extensive work. The disclosure that you see in front of you, the official statement that is our marketing document that goes to bondholders. We also had extensive discussions with the rating agencies, Standard & Poor's and Moody's. And I'm pleased to report that both of the rating agencies affirmed our ratings. Which is a worry in a recession that our high ratings a number of issuers around the country have been downgraded as a result of poor economic conditions. But our AAA rating from S&P was affirmed, and that's the highest possible rating. And our AA3 rating from Moody's was also affirmed, and they actually talked at great length. They told me about upgrading us couldn't quite get there because of the recession, but we're going to ask for it next time we go see them.